I was just, trying to fight as best I could. I remember like guys were stripping me of my gear. These are rioters, pulling my badge off my chest. They ripped my radio off my vest. Started pulling like ammunition magazines from their holder on my belt. And then some guys started getting a hold of my gun, and they were screaming out, kill him with his own gun. At that point, it was just like self-preservation. How do I survive this situation? And I thought about, using deadly force. I thought about shooting people. And then I just came to the conclusion that, if I was to do that, I might get a few, but I'm not going to take everybody, and they'll probably take my gun away from me, and that would definitely give them the justification that they were looking for to kill me if they already didn't have made that up in their minds. So the other option I thought of was, try to appeal to somebody's humanity. And I just remember yelling out that I have kids, and it seemed to work. Some people in the crowd started to encircle me and try to offer me some level of protection. And they gave, that provided me with like enough time, or other officers, specifically my partner, Jimmy Albright, enough time to get to me and get me the hell out of there and back into the west front of the Capitol. A lot of people have asked me, my thoughts on the individuals in the crowd that, that helped me or try to offer some assistance. And I think kind of the conclusion I've come to is like, thank you, but you for being there.
This is DC Metro Police Officer Michael Fanone, who's been on the force for more than 2 decades, who was not only on the front line of the deadly insurrection at the US Capitol, but was then pulled into the crowd and nearly killed at the hands of Trump supporters before being forced to plead for his life. Here's Officer Fanone first guarding the entrance to the Capitol, where he was contending with the mob trying to get past him. But then the scene turned almost deadly when he was pulled into the crowd, tased in the back of the neck, beaten, and almost shot.
I got an officer, what?
His life was eventually spared, and while he's grateful to the people who helped him, the fact that they were part of the mob in the first place effectively undermines their quote-unquote kindness. It's like thanking an arsonist for helping you escape the building that they set on fire. And bear in mind, this is the Blue Lives Matter crowd. This is the crowd that's predicated their entire identity on their supposed respect and devotion to law enforcement. The same people who bludgeoned a police officer. The same people who killed another police officer, Brian Sicknick. You can literally see the thin blue line flag flying directly above the beating of Officer Fanone, as if the hypocrisy of so-called patriots storming the US Capitol wasn't already bad enough. And so as not to delay another moment without recognizing why this all happened, it was the direct result of Trump's election fraud lies. This all came about because one man decided that he's too petty to accept the fact that he lost, and lost overwhelmingly. He lost by the same exact electoral college margin that he won by in 2016, which he himself called a landslide. And yet when he was on the losing end, suddenly it was fraudulent. Suddenly he was the victim of a coordinated scheme by the deep state and the evil socialist Democrats and even Republicans, all of whom colluded to oust the sitting president. Because apparently that's a more believable story than the fact that the least popular president in modern American history just lost. And yet while Trump's actions were unforgivable, just as bad was the fact that most Republicans echoed these same claims. They showed up on TV and at press conferences and posted online validating his baseless stolen election lies. All of it without a shred of evidence. No fraud was proven in any of the 64 court cases, including the ones presided over by judges who Trump himself appointed. Bill Barr and the DOJ said there was no fraud. Chris Krebs and the DHS's cybersecurity unit said there was no fraud. Republican governors and secretaries of state said there was no fraud. Voting systems vendors said there was no fraud, recounts and audits confirmed there was no fraud, and even Rudy Giuliani went to court and admitted that he wasn't alleging fraud. But the Republican Party wasn't interested in the truth, they were interested in perpetuating a disinformation campaign, even though it was so brazenly false that it led to a literal insurrection. And now, as predictable as the sun rising in the morning, Republicans continue to carry water for Trump and the party by claiming that the violence wasn't his fault, that he was just trying to get to the bottom of some very troublesome allegations of fraud. But A, the allegations were his own allegations, and as I explained, not a single one was proven, and B, the mob was literally there for the Stop the Steal rally, and it was Trump, first and foremost, who perpetuated the idea that the election was stolen. All day, every day for months, Trump claimed that it was rigged, that dead people were voting, that machines were switching ballots, that there were more votes cast than voters in a precinct. Any conspiracy that he could cook up, he'd share it, to the point where his supporters truly believed, by Trump's own doing, that the election was stolen. That's why they came. They admitted as much. Again, it was in the literal name of the rally. So we can pretend, after the whole world saw how violent it was, that suddenly Trump had nothing to do with it, but you could draw a straight line from Trump's rhetoric to the violence that ultimately occurred at the rally that he inspired. I mean, the guy literally told his fans what to do, to go to the Capitol and to be willing to show strength.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
And yet still the GOP is suggesting that Trump bears no responsibility. What is it Orwell said about not believing your eyes and ears? The fact is that you can't have watched this interview with this DC Metro police officer and continue to wonder whether Trump had committed an impeachable offense. These people showed up on Trump's orders, repeated Trump's claims, and committed violence in Trump's name. If you ever needed an argument to convict Donald Trump of inciting an insurrection, the charge on which he was impeached, this is it. Because until and unless swift and severe action's taken, he'll do it again. He'll continue to incite violence, and lives will continue to be lost, and our democracy will continue to be destroyed. And after seeing what he's capable of, if you refuse to stand up for this country and hold Donald Trump accountable, you don't get to act surprised if and when it happens again. Because the next time, it won't just be Trump's fault, it'll be blood on the hands of every Republican too cowardly to take a stand. So if Republican senators care about this country, if they care about the police, if they care about their own supporters, if they care about democracy, then they'll vote to convict Donald Trump at the upcoming Senate trial, and they'll send a message once and for all that ours is a government of laws, not of men. While you're here, please check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I take a deep dive into the top stories of the week, and I also interview major players in the world of politics, like Kamala Harris, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Pete Buttigieg, Katie Porter, Al Franken, Cory Booker, Jamie Harrison, Mary Trump, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.